event for you tonight. Today we have 3 Caterpillar Vice Presidents and Mike Rowe here. What we're going to do is hear a little bit from each one, followed by a Q&A. We'll give each one of you guys a copy of the book at the end. We'll have a chance to talk to all of our subject matter experts and see the booth and talk to as much of the panel at the end as you want. First off, we're going to start with Greg Foley. He's our Vice President of Reman Components Division. He's responsible for remanufacturing, undercarriage, GET, work tools, and filters and fluids. Greg?
So thank you very much. And welcome to the South Bending Caterpillar display. You might wonder, why have a Caterpillar display here in the midst of all the parts businesses? We've not done that before. Well, we know that buying a new Cat machine is only part of the value proposition delivered to our customers. Much of the real value prop comes from Cat genuine parts and the service provided by our great dealer network. And we want to highlight that here and think that this is a great opportunity to do that. Our owning and operating costs, we believe, are better than any of our competitors, due in major part to the parts business and the service our dealers provide. You'll see here some differentiated products, including Tier 4 filters, which preserve the life of the engine and fuel injectors much longer than competitive filters can do. And we'll illustrate that for you. You also see undercarriage, different kinds of tractor undercarriage, depending on the price points that our customers need. Not every customer needs the same type of undercarriage. Some of them are near the end of the life of the machine, while others are looking for something that's going to last 20,000 hours. And so we need to meet the price points where customers need them, and that's what we're all about in our business. So we're very excited to be here and looking forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Steve Goslin. He's the Vice President of Customer Service Support. He's responsible for worldwide aftermarket parts and service sales, as well as dealer development and distribution.
Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon and welcome to everybody. As Greg said, this is we're really excited about. This is really the first time we've had a display of this magnitude over in the South Hall. And I think what you're going to see throughout this entire show over the next few days is you're going to see a whole lot of technology displayed by everybody, which is really exciting. But I think the one thing we would say is, despite no matter how much technology we put out there, at the end of the day, fortunately, this business still requires people. And it requires people to create relationships with customers, and it takes people to be able to go out and help customers repair and maintain their equipment. So one of the things Caterpillar has been at work at over the past many years is building the best team. So around the world, we have 189 Caterpillar dealers geographically dispersed around the world. Those Caterpillar dealers have somewhere in the range of 3,600 facilities, and they've got over 120,000 people, of which about half of those people are technicians that actually go out and repair things and actually repair the equipment. So it's one thing to have that significant footprint out there, but it's another thing to have the people that are able to go out and do the job, do it right the first time, and help our customers be successful. So we've built a series of schools and training programs to help do that. The first one we have is something we call ABC. It's Accelerated Basic Courses, and it's really designed for the employees that are already working within the CAT dealership, but have a desire to be better and to do more work and advance and become a more advanced technician. And so this program is a six-week program that advances the capabilities of those people who work within the dealership and puts them in a better position to work safely and work effectively with our customers. We also built, starting about 2000, a program called Think Big. And Think Big was really designed for those people that were already out in the tech schools or in the community colleges that had a desire to pursue this line of business. And so working with community colleges around the world, we have 43 dealers that are engaged in this. We have 24 different Think Big schools. We do there's a program, it's approximately a 2-year program. The students graduate with an associate's degree. It's 8 weeks of basic course training, 8 weeks internship within the dealership, actually performing work, and back and forth, 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off. But these are people that then graduate, and when they graduate, they actually have the equivalent of the experience of somebody that's been out there working 5 to 7 years on the job. So it's really been successful. We've graduated over 3,000 people, and most all those people are employed out taking care of Caterpillar equipment around the world. The last thing is something we're just getting ready to launch, and that is, amongst all of this, in an increasingly complex world, we're finding we need to do a better job of training the supervisors and managers that run our service departments and help those technicians be effective and efficient in what they do. So we're working with Rutgers University. We're getting ready to launch a program that is going to actually help these people be better supervisors, help them run a complex service business both today as well as into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Next speaker we have is Pablo Kozner. Pablo's Vice President of Americas Distribution. He's responsible for dealer development and then all of the Caterpillar sales in North and South America.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here today. Well, you just heard from Steve regarding all the training programs that we have and our commitment to recruiting and training technicians. Worldwide, we have about 55,000 technicians working today, and I'm just going to talk about North America very briefly, where we have 18,000 technicians. And within the next 5 years, we expect to have an attrition of about 25%. So that would include people that are retiring or leave the job for one reason or the other. And this is a significant issue for us because that's at current levels of business and employment, which are off of our peaks. So we're committed to developing a sustainable talent pipeline in the technician area. And we're also committed to driving higher levels of efficiency in the work that they do. So we do this by many avenues, and Steve mentioned the schools, but we also have an online campaign that directs young people or people looking for work to our Caterpillar or cat.com website, where we have about 1,000 leads every single month that we redirect to our dealer network. Because today, believe it or not, considering the unemployment that exists, we have areas of this country that are in desperate need of technicians, and we expect that this will only continue. We're so committed to this, in fact, that since 2006, between our foundation at Caterpillar and working with our dealers, we have contributed $9.3 million to industry training, and that's not just for us. This is just to help our industry in training people to have the skills that they need to serve ourselves and various companies that serve this industry. But we have a real issue. This is why our partnership with Mike Rowe is so important to us, because Mike really understands this. We have a skills gap, and we have an image issue with this type of career path, which is gives people the opportunity to have great work, work that allows them to have higher education opportunities, supervisor opportunities. The opportunities are really endless. Portable skills within environments that are increasingly highly technological and safe and provide quality work. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to you, Brian, and we can hear from Mike.
I'm sure you all recognize him from the hit TV series on the Discovery Channel for 8 years, Dirty Jobs. After that, he started the Skills Trade Foundation. Most recently, he's raised about, I think, $1.6 million to support education throughout America's schools. Mike?
Brian, thanks. Hey guys. Actually, it's 2.7 million, but let's not.
It just went up.
No, you know what? We just announced today another tranche of, we call them work ethic scholarships. We partnered with individual trade schools all over the place. UTI is the most recent. That's out in the press right now. In general, first of all, pleasure to be up here on stage with you guys. I think I'm the only one of this quartet not currently or officially employed, but it's still great. I'm busier than I've ever been working with the foundation and with Caterpillar, focusing on the skills gap, focusing on alternative education, focusing on work ethic scholarships, and mostly a kind of PR campaign for hard work. That's really what brought us together in the first place. Back in 2008, just as the recession was really starting to take hold, and just as words like infrastructure and skills gap were beginning to appear in the headlines, along with unemployment, I was seeing something really curious on dirty jobs. Everywhere I went, I was seeing help wanted signs. And it just seemed odd, you know, given the fact that the headlines were what they were, to see so much opportunity. Dirty jobs shot in every single state, all 50. We did 300 altogether. And no matter where I went, I heard the same story over and over and over again from employers, how difficult it was to find people who were, A, willing to learn a new skill, retrain, retool, show up early, stay late. It just seemed to be, I know it's always been a challenge, but to hear it so many different times in so many different places from so many different people, it really just got me thinking that maybe something was disconnected, you know, fundamentally. So that's how the PR campaign for Hard Work started. We called it MicroWorks. It was supposed to be MICRO, but there was a copyright issue, so it's my name, MicroWorks. And we started talking. In the same way Dirty Jobs focused on people who very rarely get a spotlight shone on them, we started talking about the jobs themselves that were often overlooked. And we started to look at the link between the jobs that were available and the relationship the country had with the education that was required to get that job, and we started to see even more disconnects. So the whole notion of alternative education being this kind of subordinate or vocational consolation prize compared to a four-year degree and other forms of knowledge, it really struck us as something that needed to be talked about. So to make a very long story short, MicroWorks evolved out of Dirty Jobs back in 2008, and we went looking for partners. And we were looking for organizations, nonprofits, we were looking for companies, big and small. And I had a wish list, and somewhere near the top was Caterpillar. And by somewhere near the top, I mean right at the very top. And so we flew down to Peoria and met these guys, and we've been talking ever since and doing a lot of different things in a lot of different ways to continue to try and shine a light on this whole issue of closing the skills gap and getting people excited about jobs that actually exist. And there's just no better example of a company that I know of than these guys. The final dirty job that we did about a year and a half ago, we were up in Dickinson, North Dakota. We were just talking about this in the back. A kid named Jake walked up to me. I was putting up a cell phone tower with my crew. It was totally unrelated, but there was a piece of heavy equipment that needed working on, and the guy came over to work on it. He used to work for Caterpillar up there, but he basically went freelance, and I asked him why. And he said, because I can work whenever I want. I'm working 40 to 60 hours a week. I'm making, well, I don't want to talk out of school, but well into the six figures. I'm expecting my second kid. I've been married 4 years. I have no debt, and I just paid my house off. And I'm like, that kid should be on a poster. People should be talking about these stories. So this relationship with Caterpillar gives me a chance to tell those stories. It gives us a chance to connect those dots. The results we've seen, both incrementally, serendipitously, and accidentally over the last couple of years have been extraordinary. Some good things also happen when we try things on purpose, but the reality is just being in business with the right partners and keeping your ears open has given me a chance to talk about the skills gap, talk about opportunities at Caterpillar and elsewhere in a way that I never would have been able to do before. So every year we try and do something a little different. This year, somebody in CAT jokingly said, hey, you should write a book. And I said, okay, I'll write a book about this. Will you use it in the campaign? And they said, well, if you want us to use it in this whole tech recruitment campaign, we're going to need it in like a week. So it's a one-page book. It's called Profoundly Disconnected, and it's a summation in one paragraph of every single thing I learned on dirty jobs, distilled into the one big, giant, important lesson. I don't want to give it away, you'll have to read it for yourself, but it's only a paragraph, so it shouldn't take long. There are some other things in the book, including an introduction and a preface. There's a foreword, there's an afterword, there's an appendix, a dedication page. It actually really does look like a book. Brian, would you mind? It's shocking for a one-page book. Look, it actually has pages with writing and everything in it. So, Cat's been so cool to do this. They allowed it to get published quickly. We printed 5,000 copies. The money all goes back into the MicroWorks Foundation, and that money is used for work ethic scholarships, as well as advocacy and promotion for the trades. That's why I'm on the stage. It's an honor to be with you guys. It's great to be here with you too. And I heard there was a rumor of questions, so if there are any, why don't we do that?
That's true. We'll do a question and answer for a little while now. What we'd like to do with a large group is if you raise your hand, we'll pass the microphone around to you, get it to you, and then we'll answer it by the right person.
I don't want to get in front of all of them.
Anyone?
Any questions?
It'd be super awkward if there were no questions, by the way. Super awkward. Thank God. Straight back, Lynette. Right behind the camera.
Well, my question has to do with vets returning from overseas, and the tough road they have for getting jobs, and what the Micro Foundation might have for them.
Thanks. That's a great question. I live in San Francisco, and in that town is the Marine Memorial. It's a big operation downtown, and I've become friendly with a couple of retired generals, one whose name is Matt Caulfield. And Matt helped set up an organization called Helmets to Hard Hats a few years ago. And we're looking for new ways to kind of build on that, because to your point, the men and women who are coming back, it's almost scandalous, the unemployment rates. They call them RSS, recently separated servicemen and women. And historically, those rates have really been high. At MicroWorks, we obviously talk about that a lot, because most solutions start with some kind of a conversation, but we're actively looking for ways to encourage all companies to build what we call a vet-friendly on-ramp. You know, so many of these guys they already have the training, and they certainly have the work ethic. And so getting those men and women hooked up with the right job it's important, and not enough people talk about it. So it's a big deal for us, and I know it's important to you guys too.
Mike, we often hear from people in the construction industry that young people coming into the workforce are, they're interested in computers and things like that, but that they're not interested in construction-related, equipment-related fields. And I wonder if you find that to be true.
Yes and no. You know, I mean, I'm a little biased because on Dirty Jobs, there was so much joy on the show, and that's the thing. Dirty Jobs probably worked better as a PR campaign than any other show I've seen, for the simple reason that when you saw the work portrayed, especially the construction work, where you would expect to see drudgery, you almost always saw humor. And like one of the great secrets, I think, or one of the great misconceptions that surprise the average citizen is how much fun people have on the work site in this business. I've never had so much fun on Dirty Jobs working with guys who do either heavy equipment repair, construction, all that stuff. And I don't know why exactly, although I suspect it has something to do with a feeling of completion. You know, the guys in construction, men and women in construction, they get constant feedback all day long. They always know how they're doing, you know, and they have tangible examples around them all of the time, you know, reminding them of that. So the people that I met on the show were great advocates for the trades. The disconnect, I think, happens really at a very early age. And this is something that's really important that we try and focus on with guidance counselors. There is this tendency to take the kinds of jobs you're talking about, and it would be okay if they ignored them. You know, that's okay. At least you have a fighting chance. What makes this crazy is when they use these kinds of jobs as cautionary tales. So, look, if you don't go get a degree over here, if you don't take this particular path, you're liable to wind up, you know, over at the dealership. Well, that's why I tell stories about this kid, Jake, in Dickinson, North Dakota, because, yeah, you could wind up over there making $160,000 a year, working whenever you feel like it, paying your house off. So most of it's a confusion. People just don't understand where the opportunities are. They don't draw a clean, bright line between this Think Big, for instance. I mean, it's such an amazing program. You don't have to go into debt to get the training, to take the jobs that actually exist. So, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of confusion around it, a lot of cognitive dissonance around it, and I think the best we can do is keep talking about it until people get the message.
Interest the next generation in dirty jobs, but what do you think the government can do, and do you think they're doing enough? Do you have any suggestions?
No. No, I really don't. You know what? I think that we work really hard to stay apolitical. And we do it because good PR is a function of not necessarily endorsing anything. It's more a weird function of endorsing anything that makes sense wherever you find it. So when it comes to the government, you know, it's so far beyond my pay grade that I can't really say what I expect them to do or not do. Could they help? Obviously. But I think the real conversation is happening between guidance counselors and kids, parents and guidance counselors. It's really granular, you know, and from what I've seen, it doesn't matter how much money or opportunity is quote unquote created. If you don't have an underlying appreciation for the work, a genuine enthusiasm for the jobs themselves, it doesn't matter. I remember, I guess it was 2009, I was working in Manhattan with a crew of guys, great construction job. The company was called Rosenwalk, and they replaced the water tanks on top of the skyscrapers, these old wooden water tanks. And these guys are unbelievable. Part construction workers, part acrobats, part daredevils. You have 8 hours, you go up, you pull the entire wooden structure down and build a new one before the people come home and start taking their showers. Anyhow, toward the end of the day, I was in the workroom with these guys, and we were watching the news, and the anchor explained, it was when the expression shovel ready was really starting to get thrown around, and so there was a big announcement that 3 million shovel-ready jobs were going to be created. Now, one of the guys I'd been working with all day, I don't even think he knew I was kind of paying attention. He just kind of muttered it to himself, but he said something along the lines of, "Going to have a hell of a time selling 3 million shovel-ready jobs to a country that doesn't really value the business of picking up a shovel." I was like, oh, you know what? That's interesting. And you could just as easily replace shovel with working on an engine, or go down the list, right? So that's a long way of saying, yeah, there's a ton the government can do, but until or unless there's this fundamental appreciation for the work in place, and I'm not talking about at companies like CAT or at conventions like this one, that's a no-brainer. I'm talking about the 300 million people who share my addiction to smooth roads, indoor plumbing, affordable energy, smooth runways. You know, the beneficiaries of the jobs you're talking about are the people who need to be engaged in the conversation we're having. This is preaching to the choir. You know, everybody here this week gets it. Employers who need positions filled get it. People who are looking for work get it. But the majority of people who enjoy civilized life because of all that, we don't get it. We're disconnected. Until that gets corrected, I'm not sure what Kat or the government or anybody can really do except keep grabbing the country by the scruff of the neck and sticking their face in it. So the short answer is, I don't know.
Mike, just a follow-up question. You mentioned guidance counselors, education system. Are we looking at a demographic of kids in school a little bit too lately? What age would you say, or which grades is this type of pre-education and opening up doors to alternatives? When should it happen? My sense is it's happening a little bit too late. Talking to the people you've been in conversation with, when should it happen?
The second a kid is affirmatively asking himself what he or she wants to be, the moment that happens, options start getting pulled off the table. And too many times the table in question is the kitchen table, because it's the parents going, your test scores say this, you know, your father would like you to do this. I mean, we winnow away so many great opportunities so early on that the bias really becomes transparent. You know, I mean, it's hard to know where your prejudice is when you're 22 or 23 because the die was cast a long time ago. You know, for me, I was 17. I was in high school, and I grew up in Baltimore, and my guidance counselor called me down. And I was lucky. I grew up with tradesmen and farmers for the most part, but my mom and dad were both public school teachers, and there was a lot of pressure and a lot of encouragement to do well. But I was hopelessly lost. And my guidance counselor called me down and said, look, you know, we've looked at your scores. Here's the plan for you. And he was very specific. He's like, you got James Madison, and you've got the University of Maryland, both great schools. And I stopped him and I said, look, first of all, we don't have any money. And the only really, truly bad word in my home growing up was debt. And so that ain't gonna happen. And more importantly, I don't know what I want to do. So my plan is to go to, it was called Essex Community College. It was a 2-year school. And that's what I'm going to do. You know, it seemed to me like a good place to figure things out. Mr. Dunbar was his name, my guidance counselor, and he said, Mike, that's a terrible idea, terrible. And then he pointed to a poster that was hanging on the wall, and the poster had a picture of a college graduate holding his degree next to a mechanic holding a wrench. The mechanic looked like he'd lost a bet, covered in grease, just terrible. And the college grad, you know, the sun is rising behind him and his future's full of hope and optimism. And the caption says, work smart, not hard. And the guidance counselor says, which one of these guys do you want to be? So it's a long way of answering your question, but for me, that was the first time I saw some really bad advice and had it given to me by a very powerful figure. And so I actually shared that story with Kat a year and a half, and they were kind enough to let me go back, redo the poster to say work smart and hard, and reverse the whole image of the graduate. I play the role of the graduate now, and we have an actual more aspirational figure assuming the role of the technician. But the point is, I think maybe that old platitude, work smart, not hard, if you Google it now, you'll see over 30,000 pages It's still out there. It's on swag. It's become part of our lexicon. I know what it means. It's a challenge to be more efficient. But in 1979, it was being used as part of a PR campaign for college. And it was completely perverse. I think it's possible that a lot of our country actually took that advice. And I think we still tell our kids, look, work smart, not hard. There's an easier way to get to the end. We're preaching shortcuts. We're embracing efficiency at the sake of effectiveness, or for the sake of effectiveness. And so, you know, it really hit me when I was 17. I think that's when it hits a lot of other kids too, but I think it starts before that. Exactly when? I don't know. I really don't. But whenever it starts, somebody ought to identify it and smash it to pieces.
Hello, Mike.
Yes.
A very simple question. What is your favorite cat machine?
My favorite cat machine? That's a great question. And the truth is, something really interesting happens when you're making television. It makes people with otherwise really great judgment suddenly very stupid. And I've had people toss me the keys to every conceivable machine there is, and cat machines are no exception. I've operated, well, you know, it didn't look like this when I last saw it, Steve. There was an actual body attached to it. Excavators are great fun. Good old-fashioned bulldozers are fun. I think the most fun, I mean, I flipped a skid steer once. I don't recommend it. I mean, skid steers are great fun to drive. But I'm going to go with, what's the big bulldozer? The D11. I was transplanting cacti with a rancher in Congress, Arizona, back in 2008. And great dirty job, by the way. This guy, his ranch essentially failed, and all he had were thousands of cacti in his backyard. And he got a contract with the casino here in Vegas to deliver 50 of them. And so it basically saved his whole operation, and I read about it and I went to see him, and we spent the day transplanting cacti. But what he didn't tell me was, in the morning, after we drove way, way up in the hills, there was an old D11 parked out there. And he said, well, we got to make a road first. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, well, the customer's very specific. He wants that cactus about 120 yards up a hill. And so with the bulldozer, we had to just clear a path so we could drive up the truck, dig the cactus out, and get it away. Anyhow, his name was Dave Morales. He tossed me the keys to the bulldozer and said, go, have fun. So I made a road in the desert with a bulldozer. That was fun.
Fantastic. We're going to kind of end the question and answer here. From here out, the bar is open. We have subject matter experts at each one of the stations. We'd invite you to see the booth and talk to our experts. The panel is going to be around. Somewhere around the blade, we're going to have copies of the book for everybody here, and then Mike will be around to sign some of them, I think.
Brian, if you said it, it will happen.
Thank you. That's how it works. So I really appreciate everybody coming tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Spend as much time here as you want. Thanks.